Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. So, yes, I can.
How about clear over here on the other side?
Yeah.
Back in February, it was hard to imagine the day when the sun would be coming in so strongly through my windows that it's almost annoying. I feel like I need to adjust my attitude about that.
That's right.
This is a bit of a quick and hot increase. It's like a sauna in here because there's no airflow. It's like you're either freezing from the air conditioner that blasts or you're hot. I'm hot right now because it's loud. And I know both Kit was going to call in Dave and let's see. So I see some iPhones on here. So if she is here, she can unmute. And Linda will also be not on video tonight.
Okay. But she will be here?
She will be here.
Okay.
I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, I see the one that says iPhone, but that's about it.
Yeah, I know. She was traveling, so
She's actually in Canvas at her daughter's graduation.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and she was going to try to make it in.
Do we know if Kit is on, if that iPhone is her, or is that iPhone Linda?
I'm here. I just need to mute it because music at the background.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm in a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm going to mute it now.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. What do you think? 30 seconds for Linda?
I think Linda's here.
Oh, okay.
Well,
All right.
we don't know that. We don't know that. It just says iPhone. So if she could come on to confirm, that'd be great.
Yeah, she's here. I can see her name.
Oh, good.
Okay.
It
All
just
right.
says iPhone.
All right, and we're going to go with that. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Dave Dillon. I'm the chair of the Budget Committee. I'd like to call this meeting the Budget Committee for the City of Manzanita to order. Today is May 17th, 2023. And for those who are interested, the budget document itself is available on the city's website. So now at this time, we are all here, so I don't think we need to call a roll unless anybody insists. So we're looking at everybody. So, and yeah, we also have City Manager Leila Aman, Assistant City Manager Nancy Jones, County Manager Nina Christ, Public Works Director Dan Wetzel. Well, I'm not seeing him right now, but are you there, Dan?
I excused Dan and the chief.
All right.
I don't think Scott's here either, so.
I see Scott.
Scott is here,
Oh,
yes.
Scott's here. Okay.
Okay, so most of the gang is here. For our guests, you will be muted, but when you want to talk, we will unmute you and you'll have a chance to comment on anything. Each section of the meeting will have opportunities for public comment after the committee speaks. Our first section of the meeting will be, it's a formal public hearing on using state revenue funds, and that is confusing sometimes to people. And so, Nina, if you're there, could you just give us a brief explanation of why we meet, why we speak separately of using state revenue funds?
Yeah, no problem. So the city receives state revenue sharing in two different ways. One is based on per capita, and the other is based on a formula derived from the state. So when you're looking at the budget and you see under revenue from other agencies, liquor tax and cigarette tax is based on per capita, which for the city of Manzanita is 621. State revenue sharing is liquor tax and marijuana tax based on a formula. So that's the difference.
Okay. So it's not like we can smoke more or drink more and earn more money then.
Well, you certainly can,
Yeah, okay.
but I don't
All
think it
right.
helps.
Doesn't help. All right. So so at this time, I'd like to declare open the formal public hearing on the proposed uses of state revenue sharing monies for 2023-24 and on the proposed 2023-24 budget. The public hearing is now open. So any members of the committee have any comments or statements they want to make on this portion of the meeting? Having heard none, are there any members of the public that would like to speak up? All right. Well, then having heard none, I will close this public hearing. It has been held. So noted. Second section of the meeting has to do with setting of our property tax rate. The Oregon budget law provides that the budget committee sets the property tax rate for the coming fiscal year. The permanent property tax rate for Manzanita is 0.4233 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And the proposed budget prepared assumes that all of this rate will be levied. We need all we can get because this is what's, I think, the third lowest in the state. So I would entertain a motion to set the property tax rate at 0.4233 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Who said that?
Jim Knott.
Jim, thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, got 2 seconds. Okay, sounds like what, Chip and Catherine. So is there any public comment on this particular part of the meeting? Or committee comments? Crickets? Okay, having heard none of those, that will ask for the vote now. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Do I hear any nays? Having heard none, the the motion passes unanimously. Next up, where am I? Got to move on down. Next part. Now we get to the discussion of the budget itself. And we're now down, this would be the final motion. But right now we want to ask for, do we have any committee comments on the budget, the proposed budget, as we discussed the last 2 meetings and have had a chance to cogitate on? Please, at this time, speak up. Oh, okay. Any members of the public who would like to speak up, please do now. Raise your hand electronically or whatever, and go for it. Okay, we got Randy and Rob Borgford. So Randy, you can go first, please.
Thank you, Dave. I will keep this brief in the interest of time. I've previously submitted my written testimony to the committee and really not going to plan on going over that again tonight. You've had a chance to look at it, hopefully. In summary, I've compared our police and water utility services and the package of overhead services we've been told that City Hall staff provide to those respective services. The question is why these City Hall staff services, when provided for police operations, have total cost of $38,000 and the exact same services cost $191,000 for our water utility. That's a $153,000 difference. Now, the answer we're constantly given throughout the last several months leading up to tonight's budget hearing is found in the material and service expenditures of our various city funds. In fact, that's the entire foundation of the Warrenton model that forms the basis of these overhead cost transfers. So the police chief has about $100,000 material and services budget. Public Works Director has about $330,000 material and services budget for water utility operations. But apparently something extraordinary takes place when the Public Works Director puts his materials and service budget together, or actually makes a purchase out of that category, that results in $153,000 more staff overhead costs than the police chief experiences for the exact same purchases out of his material and services category. So the question I hope we could have some discussion on at some point, what is this extraordinary $153,000 extra staff effort cost? The simple truth is that the theory of the Warrenton model falls apart when applied to operational reality in Manzanita. Now, that model may work just fine in Warrenton, but the city of Manzanita has yet to string together enough examples of how it actually works in Manzanita that makes any sense and can survive a simple fact check. Now, this may not garner any discussion tonight, but I'm pretty sure as this council moves forward with their proposed water cost increases and people start asking more questions about how our water revenues that they pay every month are being used, this issue will probably come up again as far as how are we using the money that we do have and just what is our priority? Staff overhead costs or water construction costs? I think it's a legitimate question. I think it's going to continue to come up. I don't expect that there'll be any changes tonight in the budget, and this will be adopted as it has been presented. But I don't think you should be under any misunderstanding that this topic is going to go away. In fact, it'll probably become more focused as those water rate increases continue in the next couple of months. Thank you for your time. That's all I really had to say. I appreciate the work that each of you volunteers do. It is a thankless job. It's a difficult job. And I do appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. It is.
I would say at this point, I'd like to wait to comment generally till we've heard from everyone rather than one off, if that's okay. Well, that's what I'm going to do. So we might loop back to this. We might not, depending on how the other conversation goes in the meeting tonight.
I have a sense that the other people weighing in will have something to say along this line too. So let's gather all the input we can. Next up is Rob Borgford. Good friend, you ready to speak?
I am. Am I unmuted?
You are.
All right. My name is Rob Borgford. My wife Sharon and I have lived here since 2009, and we've owned property here since 2000. My remarks reflect both of our views. My background is in business, and I was the treasurer for our West Coast business. I've been on the budget committee of another North Coast entity for 4 years now. I'm in favor of indirect overhead payments to the general fund from various departments. However, general fund overcharges of indirect costs to a utility, in other words, the ratepayers, in Washington cities are cited by the Washington State Auditor's Office in a performance audit of Washington titled Local Government Allocating Overhead Costs and dated November 28, 2011. Recommendations from this audit. Cities should use current and sufficiently detailed overhead allocation plans. And I might just say at this point that, as I recall, and I looked at Warrenton's plan, it was sort of hard to get because I think it was from like 2002. And of course, they're a lot different than us. They have a port facility and a golf course, et cetera, as well as being larger. Cities should use current and sufficiently detailed plans, as I said. Cities either did not have plans or used incomplete or outdated plans in 2009. This study was 2011. As a result, and this is from that study, they either overcharged the utilities or lacked support to show that charges were appropriate. Cities should always thoroughly document the appropriateness of overhead charges and use a cost allocation plan. This again from that report. Cities should use allocation factors that equitably distribute costs. Other cities, besides Redmond and some other cited cities, based their allocations on estimated staff time, but did not reconcile those estimates to actual staff time. In other instances, cities chose factors that resulted in less precise or equitable cost allocations than other available factors. These departures from leading practice typically resulted in the cities charging the utilities more than they otherwise would have charged. Most cities should do more to ensure they charge all departments and programs that benefit from overhead services. Cities should stop charging general government costs to the utilities or clarify the benefits to the utilities. Because general government costs do not directly benefit the utilities, cities should not charge them to the utilities. Cities should reconcile cost estimates with actual costs, and I think that's quite important. So how does a city do all of this and accomplish a double check of realism that ensures a precise allocation? Simple. As a white paper by a UNC professor, and I can give you the citation on this very issue, and actually I had sent in 2019, I had sent a copy of this paper to the whole council. The very issue of water funds being a universal cash cow for all cities across the United States recommends the manager may keep a log. A simple timesheet in my business was required. I kept track of my day on a 15-minute basis. It's simple and adds certainty in allocating expenses. And of course, that's only one aspect of it. We've also got the other indirect costs, computers, and so on. Once the money is in the general fund, there's really no internal fund checking. It's there. It's rather more murky, having been transferred out. I do question the amount the water operating fund is charged for, and so I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I was listening to what Randy Kugler said, and charging that much for indirect cost transferring to the general fund from the water operating fund versus, let's say, the police department does bring up questions in my mind. I have a question for the committee as a whole too. Is it, as Randy said, is it more important to take a formula that really was not custom made for our city, but rather picked out maybe in a rather opportunistic way to fit our so-called circumstances?
That is 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll wind up.
Please.
Is that more important than being precise and double checking our figures, because we will have more money for future projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald, I'm looking right at you. Forgot your name. Sorry.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, of course. Like you said, Dave, you know what we're all talking about. And for over 4 years now, we've had a voter in Manzanita that's questioned transfers between the water fund and the general fund and tries to keep us honest. Originally, it was a direct charge. We then hired FCS. It became a calculated amount. And now this year, we're looking at using the Warrenton model. It makes no difference which way we use to calculate the transfer, as long as the actual justification is accurate. Because according to our city charter, the water fund is for water fund business only. So the calculation of it and the factors that go into it must be for water fund. Many cities on the coast here don't do this admin charge. And that's because they'd rather not raise water rates, and or they want the money to use for system upgrades or repair in their water fund anyway. My main concern is we've done so much with this transfer. We've talked about it. We spend money on it. It seems to be so important to our budget committee. I'm concerned what the real reason of why is it so important. Forget how you calculate it, but for some reason, $191,000 must be needed to be transferred to general fund. This creates fear in citizens of Manzanita because we're talking about now a $6.5 million expenditure. And I'd like to thank all the members of the budget committee for the hard work you do and the extra time out of your lives that you have to put into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald. Mark Kessner. Mark, you there?
I hit unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks for having this meeting. Over the last three budget committee hearings, I believe you call them, addressed every issue that's been raised previous to my speaking. City Manager and Chief Budget Officer Layla Aman explained in specific detail, I believe, perhaps at the meeting where the entire budget committee, minus the current mayor, approved the indirect cost allocation methodology, why exactly the police department and the water department are quite different in how their charges are figured and why. I would encourage everyone who has, genuine concerns to go back to the audio and video and listen and watch. And all of these questions can be answered quite simply by participating, even indirectly by listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Any members of Catherine, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, I'm reflecting on the best response that's maybe helpful. And I'm thinking about people who are on the call now or maybe listening later who haven't been avidly participating. Before I do that, I see, is that Carolyn Kennedy's hand up? Maybe we should continue and make sure we finish the public commentary before we go further.
Okay. Caroline?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I am here tonight to just mostly understand the budget. Both Catherine and Deb Tinnen have offered to help me with that, and I appreciate it. But I'm just thinking there's so many things that have been neglected over the last, from what I can figure, maybe 10 plus years. And so Manzanita is playing catch up with, the road repairs, the water system, the access to beaches, the administrative facilities. Those are a few that I can think of. And I do support the idea of indirect costs, providing that the needs of the area from which those indirect costs are coming from, providing that their needs are met primarily. Does that make sense? I was when I was a manager at the Garlington Center in Portland, our area, the Rehabilitation Services Department, made a lot of money. And as long as our needs were met, we were happy to let some of the overflow go into the other areas. And I'm just wondering if the administrative department and or the police department both could keep a timesheet. I think it was Rob that suggested that. And I know my staff all did that. I know attorneys do that. Physicians do that. And it seems like a simple, just documenting which billing category you're tying in with, given the hours that you spend in each day. And then that would just kind of soften all of this debate, really, about what we're doing. So that's my comment. And I just wish everybody the best of luck as we catch up with some of these neglected areas and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Catherine?
Or anybody else? Can we just double check?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so this is my response, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how much would come up and in what way, but I was thinking about the people, and actually I was thinking about myself early on in this process when, in other kind of organizations in town, when you jump in, and you start to learn, and then sometimes things seem odd, you're not quite sure why things are done the way they are, and you jump into a meeting like this and you don't have the full context for some of the points that were made. So I'm going to do my honest best to just do a quick summary of that. And if I get anything out of place, I trust the other members of the budget committee will kindly correct me on that. And then maybe just a few more comments I would have about what came up. So we, with respect to the first item that came up about the cost allocation method, so some years were quoted, and I think it has been about 4 years since this topic came up. And every year we have a fully loaded discussion about it and a debate, and we've tried a couple of things. The pendulum's kind of gone one way or the other with respect to complexity. This year we tried to get it to be a simpler model and one that wouldn't have to be changed frequently. And in my experience in accounting, which will make some of my former colleagues smile because that wasn't my area. However, I would say the game in figuring this stuff out sometimes was to get the numbers to fall the way you wanted them to fall. Well, the whole point of having an indirect allocation method is so none of that is happening. You've got a simple formula. It's applied year after year. You're consistent about it unless there's some major change to your business model or something like that, and that's that. The very fact that we've been having these discussions, spirited discussions every single year, is an indicator of strong feelings from at least a few members of the community about what the quote unquote right model should be. And we've adopted the model this year. We had a lengthy debate on it. It was in the March meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. The resolution was proposed. The resolution was adopted. The intention was we go through this for at least a couple of years, which I think everybody was in agreement on, but correct me if I'm wrong. And the record would show we're going to use this method. and simpler than what we've had before. We felt like it got too complicated before, but this is what we've chosen to do, and this is how we're going to proceed. Any allocation method we would choose is going to have consequences. Some people are happy about it, some people are not. The way that Carol referenced it in her organization would not have been how it worked where I worked, where it's not your choice about how happy you are or not about what gets shared. That's just how it works. There's an allocation method. So that's kind of on the, and it's unusual to have a debate every year this long about it. But if we continue to have that debate every year, that's fine. We'll do it. That's part of the process and part of our responsibility as a budget committee. I'm interested to hear the research that Rob did. I took that in. It sounded like some interesting comments in that. Gerald's comments, again, I'm going to be direct. It plays into this idea that people are doing things behind the scenes, dishonestly, disingenuously something. And I very much, for myself, I'll let other members speak for themselves, I very much take exception to that. And so when you use the phrase so-and-so in the community tries to, quote unquote, tries to keep us honest, and then you raise the issue of fear, that's your commentary. It's fine. We're here to hear that. But I would say that does not add anything to a good public discourse about the financial future for the community and the challenges we face. This budget, and I said it during our sessions when we went through the tight review of it, Carol, for your benefit, the meetings we've had, the 2 sessions prior to this, were spent on really deep diving, looking at things, questioning things, catching things that we wondered about, and having a good discussion amongst the budget committee. So that's already happened. But we do face challenges. And my comment in the second session as we were finishing, I would repeat here, which is the whole point of the work that the city manager has been directed to do by the first mayor, now another mayor, and the continuing councils has been to get things surfaced and organized in a planful manner so that we can make good decisions for ourselves going forward without fear, looking at the facts, looking at what the community impact is, listening very carefully to all members of our community, which has generally been the way this is done. It does not mean that you're always going to get what you want. That's the nature of this kind of process and a public process. It does mean you state your opinion, does mean you have your input. It does mean that every single person on this committee, council members, the mayor, and the volunteer citizens take it seriously, and we do. So I will say again, this is the strongest package I've seen in the time I have been on the budget committee. It's come a long, long way. And one of the services that's done for us this year is to point out the challenges that we face so that we can look at them factually, talk about them as a community, and make good decisions for the health of the community going forward. My emphasis is forward. If things have happened in the past that haven't been attended to, we've talked about this with the water system and the fact that we basically haven't been charged enough for it for the last, however long it's been, 10 years. I mean, that's all stuff that we're going to face now, and we're going to do it together. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee? Well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this thing too. And the thing about the overhead allocation to general fund from the water fund is there is some number, some figure, or some percentage that is correct, but it's elusive. You know, it's somewhere between 0%, nothing, or 100%. And obviously, neither one of those extremes is going to be right. But there have been several ideas posited. You know, past practices, new thinking, paid consultants. One of them may be right, but they could all be wrong. I don't know what that number is going to be, but a couple of months ago, the council adopted the Warrenton method, and I'm just one member of the budget committee here. I'm not the king of budgets for Manzanita, but I've always seen this problem from the beginning as a matter of really survival of this city because of the low budget, property tax rate that we are stuck with, have to comply with, because that's the law, this 0.4233. like say the third lowest in the state. But now we're looking at new possible ways to raise general fund revenues by taking not advantage, but finding new ways to diversify the revenue. So that's a good deal. But I've seen this over time. I've just felt it's like a survival thing. So what we've done is this Warrenton model has been applied to this particular budget. And I think we should and need to go with it for this year. Because right now we have state budget calendar requirements that we have to meet. And we shouldn't do anything to trip up that process. But I do believe in the next year, the topic should be something to be addressed again. And maybe in the realities of having new funds coming in, whatever new revenue streams we might be able to get for survival of the general operation fund of the city, maybe we'll find a better figure, a better percentage for transfer over. Because right now it's the money coming out of the water fund is like it's either 13.1% or if you add in the construction money, maybe 4.4% going over to the general fund. That's my calculations. But my thought is it ain't great, but we got to go with it. So that's one guy's opinion. So any other people's opinion, please.
Dave, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying, and I know that there's a process in place and that we have practical time constraints. I think the Budget Committee, though, is faced with not necessarily the transfer of the funds as much as costs are going up. The income, there's a decrease in revenue that we're looking at as we go forward. And it really is what does the city need and what can we afford to do? The water department is essential to all of us, the STR people, the second homeowners, the full-time residents, the people that visit here. Water is really primary. We've got a few roads that need some major repairs. Classic Street and Erickson estimate is about $3 million to bring that up to standard, and it's about 5 years overdue. So as we look at the budget and the broader picture, I think those are some of the questions that I'm feeling need to be answered. Thank you.
Right on point. So anybody else have any thoughts they want to add in? Please.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Kate. You
Okay.
can't see me, but I'm here.
We hear you.
My 2 cents here is from my experience, it doesn't matter if it's the public sector or private sector. Indirect cost allocation is necessary because there are some costs that is not directly related to any production unit or any project that need to be allocated. However, whatever methodology we use, there will be some, opposite idea or opinions. It doesn't matter what methodology we use. We cannot satisfy 100% of the population. That's my experience. And then I would think whatever, that we can adopt, and then we use it, and then we evaluate, review it, and then we adjust it. And going forward, we listen to all the, participants or any people that is involved in the process, listen to all that and gather the information and going forward. I am a supporter of indirect cost allocation, and then I would love to help and review the process if you guys would think that my experience will help. And that's all I have.
Wide range of opinions on this, and I think we see the difficulty of arriving at a solution. So, anybody have anything else they want to throw into the mix?
I think Anupam has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Please.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. I agree with Kit. Allocations are common, and I also agree with what Dave said. You'll never get 100% satisfaction. There's no perfect formula. We've had consultants to review it. We've agreed on a formula. Let's move forward. If somebody wants to take another look at it for next year, let's do it next year. But I'm not sure why we are spending almost 40 minutes on an allocation issue as part of this budget committee meeting. It's time to move on.
I see it as it's a critical issue because we have been saying for at least 10 years that the water rate needs to go up. But if you raise the water rates, people see it's not all going to the water department. So that's an issue that's got to be explained and shown to be rational to the rest of the public, to the citizens, on what we propose to do, what the city proposes to do, and why they want to do it, and why this is the best way to do it. So it's a critical issue, and I'm glad 40 minutes. Well, yeah, you're right. With some of these third budget meetings used to last 5 minutes in many years before. So does anybody have anything else they want to throw into it? So anyway, I just repeat my thought that it ain't great, but we can go with it, but we need to really look at it in the coming year, in the run up to the next budget preparation. So that's not a thing I see us putting to a vote here. The only vote at this point to wrap up this meeting of the budget committee is to approve the proposed budget and send it on to the city council so they can cogitate on it and approve it at their, I think it's June 14th meeting. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2023-24 budget as presented and to recommend its adoption by the city council. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Who was that?
Chip.
Chip, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the budget as presented and recommend its adoption to the city council. Could I have a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, it passes. Well, thank you very much. At this time, does anybody have anything else they want to bring before the meeting in the public who's watching?
May I ask you a question? Did I see the mayor? You voted no. Is that your vote?
You're muted, Deb.
Deb, are you on?
You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You were muted. And there's a question of which way you voted on
Right.
that.
My vote was a nay because there are projects for the water department and the roads departments that I still have questions about, whether those funds are available, whether Classic Street is going to be still a 2028 timeframe, and I have some questions about whether some of those things can be addressed a little bit earlier. So that's why my vote is there that way.
Thank you for whoever caught that. So okay, so I guess it's 9-1. Any other objections? Okay, so it passes. Thank you. I see one more hand went up and then went down. Gerald.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. Catherine, I did not try to insinuate anything going wrong in the in the indirect charge. I'm not against an indirect charge. I would like to say that what I was trying to point out is we seem so concerned about 191K. It creates a misunderstanding then about spending $6.5 million on the new city hall. That's all. It has nothing to do with anybody doing something wrong in the background. So I'm sorry you misinterpreted me.
Thank you for clarifying. It was the phrase trying to keep us honest that threw me off, Gerald. So I accept your explanation of that. Thank you for clarifying it.
Okay, that my reference to that has to do with the factors that feed into any calculations. As Anupam said, calculations work just fine. Let's go on with it. But if the factors that go into that calculation are not checked or you understand well, you know, that to me, that's keeping it honest. And I think we're trying to do that.
Yes, for sure. So this concludes the third meeting of the Budget Committee for the City of Manzanita. I thank you all very much. Next time, the council will meet on June 14th, just on the budget itself. And so that'll be, we'll see if there's any changes in the, carryover funds or whatever by that time. So
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question? Because in my experience, we haven't had a no vote, and we haven't had a no vote from the mayor after all this preparation. So I'm wondering, and this is a council question, and please, Council Layla, tell me if this is inappropriate for this venue. It's fine. But so given the way those questions were raised and weren't raised or dealt with prior to this point, which we all knew we had the deadline on, what happens between now and the meeting to approve to allow us to keep to our Oregon state regulations about the timely preparation and approval of a budget? What does this mean? Who has to do what work at this point now?
I think it's
do you know, Mayor Simmons? Could you address that since you raised the questions?
I have some questions that I would like to sit down and get answered as far as with the Public Works 5-year plan and where things are in relationship to some of the projects that Dan has indicated he needs to get started on. There's some money available, I believe, in some of the funds. And so that just came up when I was going through the budget mainly today. I don't intend to hold up anything. I just would like to make sure that that all the pieces are considered going forward, so that when we do approve, we approve with all the questions answered.
Okay, thank you. It's helpful when we can all do that together, but I understand sometimes we don't always see everything
correct
at first, even though we had some pretty robust discussion. So I hope that gets cleared up, and you'll, I guess, be dealing with city manager and then with the council if need be in the June meeting prior to the mid-June special hearing. Okay.
thank you. Oh, got two more questions. Okay, Carol. Hello, Carol.
Hello, I'm here. I just wanted to thank you all, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the discussion and answer the questions. And I think it's just terrific that you're doing that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is that? Oh, Jeff.
Yep. I think I'm a little bit concerned that the mayor has, at this late date, raised some issues that she failed to raise at earlier meetings. We all had an opportunity to study the budget and to ask the questions of staff if we had questions. We raised issues during the meetings. This is the first that we have heard about the mayor's concerns at a time when we are too late to engage in a discussion about them back at the May 8 and May 9 meetings. And so I agree with Catherine. This raises a question now. Are we throwing the process into limbo? I assume that the process goes ahead and the mayor will just vote no when it comes up to the council. Is that what we expect?
I don't know that that's what we expect, Chip. I think we have to vote to our conscience, and if there are questions that are still remaining, then they need to be answered. The two previous presentations at the budget meetings were very in-depth, and we were walked through many of the pieces. I sat down. I've watched Kit at a few budget meetings, and she's got all of her own set of numbers, and I've decided to look at some of those things myself, as well as some of the plans that are facing the city and the Public Works Department. So I still have some questions. I think they warrant some answers. I don't think that I'm holding up the process. I think it's a fair process. And if we have reservations, we're supposed to make sure that those are voiced as well.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, but first I want to say thank you, everybody, for practicing all-American democracy. I salute you all, and let's have a good parade on July 4th. At this point, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Dave.